Okay, so the recommendations, quite simply, are the easiest way to get through and to get an audit done is to change chief and counsel, if you believe that chief and counsel are involved in the fraud. That is the easiest way of getting that. You need to make sure that there are robust internal controls within the First Nation, and so that these types of fraud can't happen. So that chief and counsel there is a control mechanism to stop them from stealing in the first place. And the third one is to get a whistleblowing system, and probably somebody like you, Rob, if you can set one up, that would be ideal. Grassroots, you've got your hand up.
Hi, I just wasn't sure if Caitlin or yourself spoke about the financial administration law. That stems from the First Nation Financial Management Act, if I'm not mistaken. And that actually came from a self-government agreement. It was built right into it. Some nations have it, and it's a great tool and guideline for transparency, although many don't follow it. And there's actually a court case going on regarding that. I don't know if that's something that maybe we should save for another day, Caitlin and Rob. What do you think?
Caitlin?
So I think what you're referring to was covered earlier in my slides. So yes, setting up other processes under those regulations for your First Nation is very important, and it's easier to pursue actions once you have those in place.
Okay, Priscilla said, should you bypass forensics audits if there's already clear corruption, fraud, and mafia-type leadership? And if you do bypass a forensics audit, how would you apply to hold them accountable? Well, basically, no. That's the whole. If you've got clear corruption and a mafia-type leadership, that's exactly where you need a forensics audit, because you need to show really clearly where the money's been stolen, how much has been stolen. You need to do it for a number of reasons. One is, can you sue the individuals who have taken the money and get some of the money back from them? The money that they've wasted or they've lost, are there other avenues that you can get money back? Is there an insurance policy that you can look at? Can you look at your external auditors? Are there any other parties? If they've taken trust funds, can you have a look at the federal government? Did they do everything that they should be doing in order to safeguard your trust funds? And that, to me, is really where a forensics audit would come in.
Can I add to that, Chair? I'm Priscilla. For my question here, I worked for my band for 15 years, and I had uncovered misappropriation of housing funds, giving people repairs who never paid for their homes, renovations that weren't being done, invoices going in, and I was basically called a bitch by our financial manager because I couldn't be shut up. They subjected me to being fired, a witch hunt. And I eventually lost my job because they kept standing up for our rights as a band member. And the door has been closed to me ever since. And I cannot get help for anything. Yeah. I'm being told I've been slapped with a litigation case, so that if I post any information about my band online, if I talk about any of the systems, I will be cut off as a band member, will not receive any services as a band member, period. And I've got complaints into Canada Industrial Relations Board, the Workers' Compensation, Employment Insurance, Crown Indigenous Affairs. The list goes on. I've got complaints into everybody that is standing by, not helping me, like the CMHC on reserve affordable housing program. The list is endless. Crown Indigenous Affairs will not take any complaint unless it is regarding funding program.
Yeah. Okay, so that's probably one of the biggest problems with coming forward and trying to get a forensics audit done, is that you will be subject to, or you may be subject to retribution. There is a whistleblower policy in place in Canada, but it is incredibly weak. So that's a sad part of it. Does that mean that's one of the reasons why an anonymous whistleblowing hotline would be really good, because then you could actually probably get a lot more people to speak up about what is actually going on in their bands, and then give a lot better information about what is going on in their bands. But, you know, unless people speak up and do the right thing, there's always going to be these problems that that crooks will get away with money. And remember, there's a large amount of money at play here. And so it doesn't pay for somebody to say, oh, sorry, you caught me. It really is, you know, well, you bitch, how could you possibly do this? We're going to slap you with a lawsuit. We're going to do this. We're going to cut you off. And we've seen that happen time and time again as well with people who have reported these type of this to, you know, the authorities, is that they actually do face ridicule. And it's very, very sad.
Thank you so much, Dave, for that response. Three quick things. Dave, a forensic audit that we're talking about, generally speaking, if there is some evidence or prima facie evidence for it, and it goes and the application is made to the court, for example, do we need like a forensic accountant like you to augment or to support it with an affidavit, or can band members attempt to do that on their own? And secondly, Dave, in terms of the cost, because we have to figure out like who's going to pay for this, can the band members ask for a court order that the First Nation, i.e. their band, foot the bill on this forensic audit? Thirdly,
Yes.
Maybe Caitlin can weigh in on the third question. An Anton Pillow order, does that go along or hand in hand with a forensic audit application?
Okay, so an Anton Pillow will come along with a forensics audit occasionally. What an Anton Pillow is it's basically a private search and seizure order. So you have to have really good grounds that there's a prima facie case that fraud has taken place. And what you're doing is you're going in and you're taking down, let's say, computers or mobile phones, or looking for evidence which you believe would be destroyed would an Anton Pillow not be given. They are incredibly expensive, though. Sorry, Caitlin, I can left that one to you.
No, I was responding to more chats. Sorry. So if you can repeat what the question is, Rob.
Do you need will an Anton Pillow come into play with a forensics audit?
Yeah, not always, no. Not always.
Yeah, it won't always be there, but it's one of those where it's part of it it's one of the tools that can be used, but it's an incredibly expensive tool, and you have to show that the information may well be destroyed if an Anton Pillow order was not granted.
And the second question is the cost, in terms of, can a band member or band members ask the court that the First Nation foot the bill for a forensic audit?
Yeah, that's very possible. and that you can do, and the court can give direction as to how much the band would be responsible for paying.
But like you said, Dave, there has to be the evidence there.
There has to be evidence.
Like one or more smoking guns.
They're not going to give you that type of leeway to go in unless there's a real smoking gun.
If a couple of folks want to unmute themselves to ask questions of Dave or Caitlin, we still have about 5 minutes left, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Hi there. I have a question for Caitlin, and it's around the fiduciary responsibility. So I know this is supposed to be about fraud, but what about gross mismanagement, where the council decides to spend huge numbers, thousands and thousands of dollars into recruiting agencies when we didn't actually need new people in those positions, paying out severance in the same position over and over, forensic audits where they're not disclosing to the members that they're paying these things, and shutting down own source revenue sources. Like, these are revenue streams that the bands had, and they're just deciding to shut these things down so that there's no income streams. And they're also, what they also have done is they're refusing to provide housing on reserve. There's been no new housing in like 16 years, yet we have land. So I don't see why those are our assets as members. Why can't members build houses? And also another question regarding that is the disclosure or access to information, does it include the documents such as comprehensive community plans, strategic plans, and like the assets reports to ISK?
So for your first question, in terms of gross mismanagement, as I said at the beginning, Chief and Council has to act in the best interests of the nation and individual band members. What you have described, based on that, does not seem to be meeting the fiduciary duty in terms of what they're doing. I don't really know what their impetus for taking those actions are. So you may be able to try to force them to be accountable through again, like a judicial review, breach of fiduciary duty claim. But as Dave said, your best opportunity is probably to try to garner community support to get them out.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Cutting in.
Hello?
Yeah,
Yep.
let's carry on.
Hey, I have a question for Dave, Caitlin, and Rob. I was just, what do you guys think the chances of Frog Lake getting a forensic audit, or is that too far gone?
No, I still think that there's a very good chance that you could get a forensics audit going. There's so much wrong at Frog Lake. I mean, you guys have lost $200 million at least out of your trust funds over the past 10 years. There's enough there to show that, there's a lot there to show that there's a lot going wrong. The problem is getting somebody into court to actually get Chief and Council to go along with it. The best you can do, Hans, is to arrange a Chief and Council now for the election that takes place next year and garner support from the community in order to replace Greg and the others, and then go for forensics audit.
Yeah, and I have a question. Hey, Rob, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hans?
Hey, Rob, for the case that's happening right now with me and Frog Lake to get the BCRs, your role as an intervener, say we won the case and we got access to those BCRs, do you think that would give us more of a chance to use that evidence from those BCRs to get a forensic audit?
Well, I'm not qualified to give legal advice. Caitlin's here.
Okay.
But as far as the intervener and the the potential law firm that may help us with that as an intervener application. Those BCRs are going to form part of the evidence that Dave and Caitlin were talking about for that court case.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
those BCRs that spoke to the reason, or hopefully the reasons why any money was withdrawn out of that 100 or 200 million that Dave is talking about, those are smoking guns, plural, for that court case of yours.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so folks, I see Christine has her hand up, then Iris, and then Kevin, and then we'll wrap it up with Byron. So Christine, go ahead.
Hi, it's Christine. Thank you guys for bringing this workshop forward. I wish, we could try to broadcast it to all our communities. For the record, sorry, Christine, for the record, where are you from? What First Nation? Oh, I'm sorry. Nottawaganeg First Nation, that's in New Brunswick. It's called Ground First Nation in New Brunswick. So I'm an ordinary member on the reserve, and, I've been going through accountability and transparency for a long time. And I've been dealing with, identifying accountability and transparency and mechanisms and, ways of knowing, and going back to our elders and asking us and what do you think? And the lack of accountability with the audits and everything. And there's always somebody that knows what's going on. And I do think the whistleblower program is a great idea. I just think it has to be developed. I think when you're looking at identifying, fraud, we have to look at, is it intentional wrongdoing? We also have to look at, what is the objective here? Are we going to try to foster, the communities into compliance and educating them and teaching them? And, because if we look to our elders, they will tell us we never had to worry about this before. This is it doesn't make any sense. So we don't get our audits, financial meetings, nobody understands that part in the reserve. It's not very clear. And I think, the government has a lot to win here if they can cooperate and, agree to foster this objective, especially where they're pouring hundreds of millions of dollars in our communities. And we're dealing with so much when it comes to poverty and drugs and alcohol and the situations that we're in. So, maybe there's intentional wrongdoing, but I know when I was looking through some accountabilities in my community, in my area, were they intentional, or did they know what they were signing? Obviously they got paid off and they have a nice bank account, but, the ways of knowing, I guess, and the way audits are two different worlds, right? We have our Indigenous world and we have audits in terms of colonist world. So I think, if we're going to start developing and, bringing compliance to our communities, we need to start defining it ourselves.
Christine. Thanks, Christine. And is there a quick question for Dave or Caitlin?
Yeah. So where are you guys seeing the government in terms of all these cases coming forward and saying, we're going to develop this or that, or we understand there's a chronic problem. What are they going to do for their side of the accountability process? If you see that at all.
Dave or Caitlin, do you want to tackle that?
It's a really difficult one. There's a lot of political issues around the First Nations and the government at the moment. And I think personally that the government is trying their hardest to just take a step back and not be seen to be attacking any of the First Nations or doing anything that might be perceived as being hard on a First Nation. Is it the right? We've seen that they're not enforcing the FTA Act at the moment. They haven't repealed the act, which is good, but they aren't enforcing it either, which is bad. So, it's that type of thing. Are they doing everything they should be doing in order to help the bands? Probably not. And it's going to just it's going to be interesting to see how they progress over the next few years.
Okay, well, I did promise Iris and Brian, and unlike the federal government, I don't break my promises. Okay, that's supposed to be a joke. So Iris, go ahead and unmute yourself then, Brian, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, thank you. It's Ronnie Jules from the Amsterdam Band Shukweben. I just want to say that about 16 years ago, we attended a one-day workshop in Vancouver. I and a council member. I was on the council. A firm from Calgary, I believe. I don't know. It's the same firm on red flags and forensic audits. And it was a very, very good workshop because they pointed out red flags, and we, oh wow, everything lit up. We ended up coming back and dissolving our economic development board for 4 band members and 4 non-natives on there. We had found out they purchased 2 buildings with our band funds. It had nothing to do with economic development, and used band funds for that. And we actually signed, they got the council to sign BCRs that were after the fact, and they were pointed out that they were for different reasons, not purchasing buildings. So yeah, it's red flags are really, you pointed out a few red flags, but there's a lot more. It's usually a economic development board or a big company that's tied into relatives on the council, or vice versa, that help process some of these large amounts of invoices and payments and honorariums and stuff like that. And we found out we had another bank account opened in a different town for the Economic Development Board and stuff like that. I just want to mention how important your talk was today, and encourages a lot of people to speak up. And many bands have that same reason as that lady spoke about. And you speak up, and you're cut off all things, even your Christmas events and stuff like that. And thank you very much for your presentation today.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. I mean, there are lots of red flags too, that if you look around, you can see most of it is money being spent without any, well, are people hiding away when questions are asked? So when you're asking questions of the band as to how did we spend this money, if they ignoring you and saying, well, that's an external, there's external audit, we're not answering what's behind there, it's been audited, that's a huge red flag. Mm-hmm. If you have a look and, you've got money in from wherever, and the amount of money being spent on something just doesn't look right. If you're bringing in water at $450,000 a month, as is happening in one of the bands, that's wrong. It's just wrong. And that means that you can go and you can start looking and saying why, and, start doing an investigation into what's actually happening.
I think we had a 10-day forensic audit paid by band insurance, if I recall. Our new administrator funneled that through, and she also, after 10 days, we decided to cut it off because it was getting very expensive. But the things that we wanted to find out, we already found out by dissolving our ECDEV board.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot stress enough that it's really important for the community to be involved and for people who know what's going on to speak out. Because forensics audits can get very expensive. Fraud is designed to be concealed. You don't go buy 2 buildings and say to the band, hey, we bought these 2 buildings which have got nothing to do with us. Mm-hmm. Right. You hide it away. You put forward false BCRs. You do all sorts of things in order to hide that you've actually done that. You open up a bank account which isn't part of the normal banks. All of these things take place, but for somebody to come in and to find that, it takes time. For somebody to walk up and say to the forensics auditor when he arrives, here's a bunch of things which we think is going wrong. Hell, you target it from day one when you get there, and you're able to sort it out for a lot less than if you're just going in there blind.
Thank you.
Okay, Brian, you are next. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks to Rob and his team for this great information session.
Where are you from, Brian? Brian, sorry, where are you from? If you can just.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, I'm Brian. I'm a member of the Animigo, Zagagan, and Anishinaabe, but I currently reside in Sudbury, Ontario. My comment, I don't know if it's a comment or a question or maybe a conversation for another time, but I've heard several times the words or the terms "in the best interest of the membership." So my, I guess, question really is what constitutes or what is defined as, or how do you measure in the best interest of the membership?
Definitely depends on the circumstances and at the time. A lot of some court cases have talked about, is it looking into the future? So if you have a trust fund, for example, that trust is not for short-term use. It's to look at beneficiaries, which are in some cases 7 generations, to look forward and go through. So it's a very contextual analysis about what is in the best interest. And as I said, they have to balance what's in the best interest of the community in spending money and what's in the best interest of the members. And sometimes those conflict. Especially when you're looking, for example, at per capita distributions, like how much is it appropriate to treat members at a certain short period of time, but then also keep the balance of that back for the nation as a whole and where it should go. So I know that's not that good of an answer to your question, but it's very much a fact by fact. What is the circumstances of the particular nation? Is there a housing crisis? Is there a particular need that they should be addressing? Are people able to get their basic services met? If they're not, then maybe the best interests are to deal with that in the first instance. So it really depends on the particular circumstances of the First Nation at the time.
Okay, very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to repeat what I said to the chat. If you have any further questions, please contact me via email. It's president@bmac.org. And again, BMAC is with 3 A's in it, not 2. And I will pass it along to Dave or Caitlin. With that, I would like to once again thank Dave Oswald, the forensic accountant, for his time. Dave, I guarantee 100% we will be working with you to implement that whistleblowing component for BMAC, because I think that is a missing piece in the pursuit of good governance, which is part of our mandate. And Caitlin Long, thank you very much. Folks, Caitlin, as well as her partner at Norton Rose Fulbright, Brian Walker, have been instrumental in helping BMAC fulfill our mandate. So with that, Caitlin or Dave, I'll give you the floor for 30 seconds or so, and then I'll kick it back to me, and we will wrap up. Caitlin, go ahead.
No, just thank you very much for the opportunity. I do like to hear the concerns that are happening and try to address as much as I can. And as Rob said, if you have a question, send it to him and I'll try to address it if I can. But thank you very much for having me here today.
So where do we find the answers to these questions?
Yes, once again, Chris, emailing it to me, and then I can pass it along to Dave or Caitlin. So again, president@bmac.org, because we do have to wrap it up. And Dave, 30 seconds or less.
Yeah, just thanks very much for the opportunity to speak to you guys. Forensics audits aren't easy. They aren't something that you can get in place, and they do cost a lot of money. So don't do them if you do not believe that you're going to get a significant amount back. And really, at the end of the day, if you're losing money and it's not in the best interests of the community, but it is in the best interests of a few members of the community, that's what you need to be stopping. And that's what you use a forensics audit for.
Thank you, Dave. Well, as you can see, we have participants from New Brunswick, the East Coast, and all the way to British Columbia. So this was a coast-to-coast national workshop. Again, my name is Rob Louie. I'm the president of the Band Members Alliance and Advocacy Association of Canada. And with that, it's a wrap. Thank you, folks. Take care.